Cisco Secure Firewall, direct integration. Although we can integrate with other technology sources, we're going to focus on Cisco integration and really showcase the differentiating capabilities when you start building towards a platform-based approach. Now you have Cisco Secure Firewall in place, and it's doing the things that you would expect a next generation firewall platform to do, including some advanced capabilities we talked about in previous videos like correlation policies, host profiles, contextualized data, and so on. You have an identity source. That identity source might be tied into Identity Services Engine, which is providing network admission control or network access control, guest access, 802.1x, software-defined access, driving towards a zero trust outcome. Now, when it comes to ICE, some of the integrations include identity that goes beyond user and group, where we start adding device as a condition, a location, and secure group tag. So software-defined access that ties into Cisco Secure Firewall. Now, from a remediation perspective, the firewall can tell Identity Services Engine that it has seen some level of activity or indicator that is suspicious or nefarious, and therefore tell Identity Services Engine using adaptive network control to isolate the asset. Pretty neat stuff there. Especially if a printer's scanning a network at 2 a.m. in the morning, you automatically get it quarantined. Quarantine means many different things. It could be shutting down the port. It could be moving it into a forensic VLAN, but that integration exists. We start looking at the endpoint itself. We get things like VPN. You get zero trust network access. You have things like feeding additional telemetry into the Cisco Secure Firewall, such as, is there malware that was executed on the endpoint? Where is the location of the malware that's on the endpoint? And did I quarantine on the endpoint? I can see all of that in Cisco Secure Firewall Manager without having to leave the interface itself. Again, optimizing the insight required to make a decision. We have integration with Cisco Duo, so we can do things like risk-based multi-factor authentication for services like VPN, but also using risk-based multi-factor authentication for managing the Cisco Secure Firewall. Secure network analytics, so we baseline the network, we get a ton of telemetry there, we can see things when our controls fail. But Cisco Secure Firewall can also send NetFlow or NCell directly to Cisco Secure Network Analytics and allow the behavioral analytics to play against that data set that's being fed by Cisco Secure Firewall. Cisco Secure Workload, as we start moving to zero trust in the data center and microsegmentation and host-based or workload-based controls, we can also now start leveraging the firewall for macro-based controls, an area where an agent can't be deployed. We can provide flow data from Cisco Secure Firewall into Secure Workload. Secure Workload can digest that and run application dependency mapping against that and provide policy that we can enforce from a Cisco Secure Firewall perspective. Now, if these policies are in place and as new workloads come online and offline, these policies are dynamically updated on the fly, which is really, really neat, especially when we get into the cloud service provider or the hyperscalers. Cisco Secure Access, and I'm going to put Umbrella into this bucket here, but auto tunnel creation with Cisco Secure Firewall. No complexity here. We completely strip that away to access the security cloud. On top of that is we can have consistent DNS-based policy that's being applied to not only the Cisco Secure Firewall, but our roaming users, our branch users, and get some real consistent outcomes no matter where the user or machine happens to be. Obviously, a strong tie-in with technology and our Cisco routing platforms, wireless, wired, VPN, as I mentioned, and the data center leveraging things like ACI. Now let's add in XDR. Now where XDR comes in with Cisco Secure Firewall, we can automatically promote incidents into the XDR platform. Things like security intelligence, malware events, intrusion events. This way, and analysts can go to the XDR, Extended Detection and Response platform, and drive outcomes with a holistic view of what might be happening in the environment. And then ultimately, Splunk, when we want long-term storage of our data fed in with high-fidelity data from our Extended Detection and Response platform, we now optimize our queries within the platform itself. And if we tie that in with observability, we really have a truly differentiating capability, because we can look at the business context as opposed to just traditional based insight that we've been looking at as an industry up to this point. So everything in green here is Cisco, and it's never only going to be a single vendor, but you can see how quickly that secure firewall wrapped in with all these other services really starts to provide some interesting value around the integrations. But let's go beyond that, because now we have extended detection and response in play. So what can we do here? Well, identity gets added into XDR. So we have endpoint detection and response, network detection and response, and identity threat detection and response all integrated into a single platform with all the other augmenting technologies. We also integrate that with Splunk again to feed that high fidelity data into the Splunk platform. We have integration that we can run playbooks against with our endpoint platform. We can also feed in that endpoint detection response data into XDR. We have risk-based multi-factor authentication. Again, that identity component gets carried into our XDR platform, and we can do orchestration and automation on top of that. Cisco Secure Firewall, as I mentioned, we promote those incidents, security intelligence, malware, intrusion events. Secure Access, identity services engine, so we can drive specific quarantine actions across the board and mitigate risk that might be happening in the network that may have been seen in the firewall or may have been seen by any of these technologies. You've got secure network analytics, looking at the behavior of the network and providing data and insight back into the platform when something nefarious is going on, so our network detection response capability. We have Cisco Secure Workload providing us insight into micro-segmented based policies within the data center. Then we have integrations, including Cisco Routing, where we get SD-WAN with Security Services Edge capability being provided by Secure Access. On the campus side, wireless and wired, including VPN. We can do a level of authentication and authorization with posturing and profiling and driving towards software-defined access and zero trust. We have the data center that's tied tightly into Cisco Secure Workload, and Secure Workload providing micro-based segmented policies within the data center itself. And check this out. We don't stop there. We've got things like Cisco Attack Surface Management. How do you know what your attack surface looks like? How do you know if an S3 bucket's being shared publicly, even though it's marked private, because someone inherently gave access to a EC2 instance or a VM to the internet and actually tied it to that S3 bucket? Risky stuff. So how do you know that? And this is where attack surface management comes in. You got risk-based vulnerability management. If you're patching everything from 7.5 to 10 from a CVSS score perspective, it's a losing battle. Not everything needs to be patched, but you need the data and telemetry to understand what is a priority for the organization. And when you do that, you get better buy-in from application owners or business owners about updating their applications. We've got email. Email's still a number one vector that's tied into the XDR platform. You've got multi-cloud defense providing a PaaS solution for advanced firewall functions within your hyperscalers. So being able to provide things like DLP, intrusion prevention, web application firewall, ingress, egress, east-west based controls by unifying it across all the multi-cloud environments without the complexity. And then finally, we've got artificial intelligence as we start leveraging things like Cisco Security Cloud Control. We now add in artificial intelligence to help augment the team. We also provide that within the extended detection and response platform. And we've mentioned that we drive that outcome within Cisco Secure Firewall when it comes to encrypted visibility without having to decrypt the traffic. So everything is powered by Cisco Talos, and customers have the ability to add Cisco Talos incident response. Now you can see how this starts to build out. There's an awful lot of green here. Now, you're still going to have other vendors playing a role in the security space, but we start removing some of the complexity and we offer an integrated platform that's fully supported where all of these pieces are working together to remove as much risk from the environment as possible. Now, this is not everything. We could also shift left and get into that conversation, but because we centered this around the firewall itself, we'll leave that for another discussion. So again, Cisco is the only vendor that has a comprehensive best of solution when it comes to security.